Team 1. Breach, breach, breach.
You're listening to Breach Your Mind. Hey guys, welcome back to Breach Your Mind. Hope everything's going good for you. As last couple of weeks have gone, you got me and Chris here with you. And continuing in our segments on leadership, today's episode is going to be the discussion on upper management. That section of management or section of the company that often gets looked at as being disconnected from everyone else for one reason or another. So that'll be the continuation of the conversation on leadership. This is the third segment and final segment, at least for now, in this conversation. And it's worth noting that both Chris and I have not been in upper management in our current professions. So we're going to be speaking from the terms of how we see it from our current positions. And in doing so, we're going to have to be realistic and give concession to the fact that we don't know everything that goes on in upper management. So we know there are facets of upper management, especially when you get to talking about budgets and a bunch of different aspects of business life, because regardless of the profession, there is a business aspect, especially when you get to upper management. And you're talking human resources and finances and all of that and equipment. So we are realistic and will give concession to the fact that we don't understand or know every aspect of it. But I believe the one aspect of it, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong here, or if he believes I'm wrong, the one aspect that will remain constant, regardless of these outside mitigating factors, are people. The people up and down the chain, regardless of position, are the same. And while we all have our different personalities, our different minds, and we are individuals in and of ourselves, there is still a level of respect that everyone expects from themselves. And there are certain aspects of human nature that will never change based on your position. Or I say will never. I believe history has taught us that ethics is something that can go out the window, but that's another conversation for another time. And not that that's a focus in this episode, but there are certain aspects of human nature that will and should never change regardless of your position. And I think that's where we're going to kind of get into. And Chris, I'll kind of lead off here. As far as I say I don't have any upper management or executive level experience in that, but at the same time, that's not entirely true, depending on how you want to look at it. Obviously, having a very extremely small general contracting business for a couple of years doesn't really equate to a big company or a big organization or anything like that. But that in itself, I did have my own general contracting business at one time. I've got experience in building houses and doing different things, and that was, matter of fact, I think I brought it up in the first episode of Breach Your Mind. It was an idea my brother brought to me. He came to me and, he was tired of working for somebody else, putting money in somebody else's pocket, and wanted to go out and kind of get our own thing. And I've never been 100% geared toward that. So it was kind of a leap of faith in doing it. But we wound up doing it. We started our own general contracting business. And along the way, we had a difference of opinion in how a business should run or whatnot. So we wound up separating on that aspect, and I went at it on my own. And one of the things that was my biggest problem, and I discussed this with you offline, was one of my biggest faults when I had my business was I never had any employees. The consideration was there to try to hire somebody and bring them on and have them help me with the work. But at the same time, I felt that no one And I still think that no one's ever going to care about your business the way you do. Your heart and passion is vastly different from someone else's. So there's never anyone that's going to have the exact same passion for what you're trying to do as you do. And that being the case, my fault was because I felt that way. I didn't want to hire somebody. I didn't want to bring somebody on that wasn't going to feel the same as I did, because to me at the time, and I was in my early 20s, to me at the time, they were going to have a lesser product. And that's not what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for somebody that was going to come out and half-heart the work and create a lesser product. I'd always kind of gone by the philosophy that if a new company can survive the first 2 years, then you got a good chance at surviving. And by this time, I think I was already a year in, and I was now doing it on my own. And I wanted my company to have the best chance it could. And to me, the best chance was by myself, because I just wasn't going to give anybody else a chance to screw it up for me. And to me, that was a fault, because as a business owner, what I should have been looking at is, can I hire somebody and bring them on as an employee that's going to be able to help benefit the company, help the company move forward? And if I brought somebody on with the experience that I had, or even more, well, then I can double my output. I could double the jobs that we can get done, because now I can send that person out to go do these jobs while I'm doing this job, and vice versa, or work on them together and get it done faster. So I really denied myself as a business owner in having a successful business, because I had too little faith in people. I had too little faith in individuals that they weren't going to be able to do what I wanted to get done. And even though I'm only in the, I guess you would say, middle management section of things in my life now, I've been in it a while, and I see the value in people a lot easier now. I see it a lot more. I'm a lot more open-minded now. A lot of that came with education and experience that have come over the years, since you made it so much, or you so eloquently put it about me being pretty old in the last segment. But it's something that's came with time and experience that I've, really started to understand the value in people and what they can help you accomplish. Not what they can do for you, but what they can help you accomplish. And being in that middle management role, I've been able to apply that philosophy, in my current profession. And to me, it's been a success. To my supervisors that are talking to me about the watch and telling me that, they're satisfied and pleased with the work that we do and things like that. So to me, it's been a success. So looking at it from that standpoint, my failure, which was a learning experience, my failure as a business owner, was because of my own doing, because I didn't have that faith in people that I was willing to bring them on and take that risk to say if I could, make my company better. And I think that applies all across the board. I think it applies not just in business, but, in our current profession. I think it applies in the military, though that's a vastly different organization all in of itself. So that's kind of where I want to lead it off with is just having the faith in people. I think from an administrative standpoint, from an upper management level standpoint, I think it's important for you to see the value in the people that are down the chain. See the value that those people can bring to your company, bring to your business, bring to your organization, and really do the best you can to bolster that, empower those individuals to be able to take that stand and do the best they can. I don't remember if I said it earlier or not, but a lot of those techniques and skills and things that we talked about for the middle management, I think they also apply for the upper level management, but with all the extra added stuff, it brings something else. And what's your opinion on at least that particular area? Because I got somewhere else I'm going to go with it as well, but.
I think the key word here is disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Keyword here is definitely disconnect, but I'm not going to put all the blame on the upper level management or the administration.
Right.
Yes, there's a disconnect from them to us, and when I say
Yes.
us, I'm talking about the guys, putting in the 12 hours or the whatever you work, the 10, 8, 12s, whatever you work.
Yeah.
And you guys are the operation, right? Whether that be law enforcement, where we talk about on the patrol side, we're kind of the face of the public. That's who they see. They see us every single day.
Yep.
We deal with the public every single day. Upper level management does not. In our minds, there's a disconnect that they don't know. Oh, they don't know this job. They don't know how it is. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm going to reverse that role real quick. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what they deal with.
Yep. I agree.
We have no freaking clue.
Yep.
Okay. So the fault is not just on them. The fault is also on us. And a lot of times we don't think about that. We complain and we fuss, and we don't ever step back, take a deep breath and say, hold up, wait a minute. There's a reason why they're pushing this information out. There's a reason why they're making this new policy. There's something going on.
Yeah.
We don't take the time. We just think they're picking on us,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't care about it. That's not true. I don't think that's all. I don't think that's true at all. And
Maybe
I think
individuals, but not as a. There may be those individuals in those positions that'll do that, but I agree with you. I don't think it's an organizational thing.
I don't think as a whole. I think, yeah, you may have a few bad apples, whatever, but I'm talking about as a whole, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying to bash any administration. You guys have a hard job. I mean, they have a hard job because they have to, not only do they have to answer, and they got to worry about the well-being of their employees, right? They got to worry about us,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they also have either whether it's a product that they're trying to sell and they're trying to put out the best product possible. Because you got to think, even though I've never worked in that side of the house, or even in that realm of business, those guys, the CEOs, the guys who created the company, they love their product. They're all in on their product. They think their product is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're passionate about it, so they want to have the best thing possible. And I respect that. I do. But I think what happens is there's somewhere in the middle that both sides of the house, they lose something. They lose that connection. And I think that's what everybody deals with in any profession, is that you just, when you reach that level, sometimes you lose it. There's more going on that you forget about, the lower end of things. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly where I was, wanting to go with it next, was the disconnect. Obviously, as you move up through the ranks of your organization, regardless of your job, as you move up through the ranks, there is a natural disconnect. It's a natural disconnect, in my opinion, a natural disconnect that happens as you move up, because now you're taken away from those other tasks that you were so accustomed to doing. You understand it, and you know how you did it when you were there. But as time goes on and the further away from those particular jobs you are, that natural disconnect happens. And likewise, like you said, there's that disconnect from our standpoint on it, because all we can see is what's in front of our face. And if we're not willing to take that step back and look at a broader picture or what have you, we get lost in it as well. And I'd actually had a conversation with someone about it not too terribly long ago, about that natural disconnect. It's fine that it's fine. It's natural and you can't stop it, but the natural disconnect happens. But my problem is when we realize that there's a natural disconnect and then we ignore it. Because while you can't stop the natural disconnect, you can try to bridge the gap that's there. And the only way, in my opinion, that you can do that is by keeping that relationship with the individuals lower in the ranks, lower in the job titles. As far as like a structure goes, not individuals, but when you know that there's that natural disconnect and you intentionally ignore it after it becomes relevant, that's where I see, as an administrator, things kind of get off the rails, because now instead of trying to do something to bridge that gap in that disconnect, instead of trying to bridge that gap, you're just allowing it to continue. And by allowing it to continue, the willingness for everyone to be open-minded and try to see things from all standpoints becomes less. Then you start getting more into that us versus them mentality. And like we discussed earlier, the us versus them mentality is not beneficial. It's not beneficial for an individual. It's not beneficial for the organization or the company. And it just doesn't need to be that way. Some of the best companies in the world have got such a smooth transition between the top and bottom. The guys at the top, they know the guys on the bottom's name. They're walking around shaking their hands. Hey man, how's things going? How's your weekend? And I'm not saying you got to be personal with anybody, but they have that smooth transition because they work to bridge that gap. And if you don't do it, then how are you benefiting anybody? And the only way you can do it is by making that effort to go out and keep in touch with your people, keep in touch with what they're doing. Specifically, like in our career field, crap, man, think back over all the social unrest and everything that has happened. I know you've seen it where you are and down here. With all the social unrest, those of us that are on the front lines of it, those of us that are out there in the public, and thankfully here, we haven't had anywhere near the effect that some of the other agencies and departments and things like that across the country have had. But on a smaller scale, we've had some that have been involved in the social unrest and social stuff. That really, those of us that are having to go out there and handle that face to face with individuals, it affects you. And then you have individuals that are up in upper management that, because they're not, that natural disconnect is there. They don't have the same feelings, emotions, and concepts that you do working in that every single day. So, they will do things. And then of course, those of us that are out there going out and doing it, we're like, why are we doing this now? Like, don't we have enough to handle right now without this extra stuff? And it's that natural disconnect that keeps individuals from the top from going, you know what, they're right. Maybe we can hold off on X, Y, or Z. And I'm not pointing that out as a fault by any means, as far as an individual thing, unless you recognize it and ignore it anyway. But we've got the change in our career field. We've got the changing laws, the constantly changing social construct and social contract between, the public and the public safety environment. And that's stuff that those of us that are still on the road and still going out and being, as you said, the face of the organization, those are things that we deal with on a constant basis. And back when one of the other podcasts I talked about getting lost in the little things, that's what winds up happening with those of us that are out there on the road. The admin is looking at things from a different standpoint. The upper management is looking at things from a different standpoint. They've got a different picture or a skewed picture, or however you want to view it, of how things are or what things are and what needs to get done. And because they're not dealing with everything we have to deal with on a daily basis, they may make some policy changes or institute some new things that we need to do. And because of the disconnect between us and them and us, we wind up looking at it like, why are you adding this now? Why are you doing this?
The good idea fairy.
Yes, the good idea.
I mean, that sums that up. I agree. I mean, it's hard. Both sides of the house are hard.
Yes.
There's no, you got to compromise. And and I like what you said. I wanted to touch on it and it kind of goes back to the second segment we did where we talked about, get to know your people.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously upper level, depending on the size of the company, you're not going to know everybody.
Right.
You're not going to, you make the best effort you can, but if you walk onto the assembly line one day, you just want to see how operations are going,
Mm-hmm.
and you go in and you talk to those guys and say, hey, how are y'all? How's everything going? What can I do to make things a little bit better? And just hear them out. Even if you just hear them out, and if it's something you can't implement, you can't implement it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But just the fact that, you give them an opportunity to express, hey, boss man, this is might be something, we'd be interested in.
Yeah.
That could go a long way. What did we do? Was the award ceremony that we that we got implemented. That was it wasn't necessarily like it was, there were some attaboys that were handed out in a ceremony, like end of year.
Yeah.
And that made people feel valued.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be some, something you wore on your uniform. It was a piece of paper that said, hey, we recognized you did this. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I got actually it was given to me by the agency, obviously, but it was spurred from you guys. You guys had all put in a recommendation to the agency to recognize me for, my leadership ability or skills or however you want to put it. And honestly, dude, that meant the world to me, because even though, I'm quite familiar with all of the people that I work with on the watch, and we talk all the time. It was that validation of the efforts for what I had done, because me, I'm never the one to go, look what I did. It's always you guys. You guys are the ones doing the work. I'm just there making sure the train don't come off the tracks. But you guys are the ones doing the work. And y'all took the opportunity to try to make and y'all didn't know if when y'all sent that up to admin that they were gonna, this is something that's worth, mentioning. But it was something, it meant a lot to me just because you guys were taking the time to recognize the stuff that I was doing.
Right.
And that was huge to me. It really was. I held on to it, and, I still got it now. And I was sitting there looking at it going, man, that's awesome. Like, we talk and we say things face to face, but this was an acknowledgement amongst the whole agency of that. And yeah, man, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, I definitely think just the not everybody's out there looking for awards or anything, but an attaboy every once in a while,
100%.
It goes a long way. It means, and like I want to reiterate, you may not know everybody, but do your best.
Yeah.
At that upper level, do your best to at least recognize faces.
Just this past week, I had a couple of people that I was talking to, and I believe one had been here a couple of years, the other one had been here a few years, and they made the comment to me that they believe there are people in upper management that still have no idea that they've been there. One even made the comment that every time he has a conversation with upper management, it's almost as if the upper management introduces themselves again. And he was like, I don't know how many times I've been introduced to this individual. And I was like, wow, that's, that obviously with our agency, it's got its size to it. But that was something that I was like, wow, man, because we're a bigger agency, but we're not that big. And these two individuals, from their standpoint on the zone side of it, looked at the upper management as, you don't even remember that you hired me. I've been here for years now, and you don't even remember that you hired me. And that immediately sparked the thought in my mind of, oh crap, this is something that I need to try to figure out and try to get a handle on and get up on, because how is that affecting, as far as my standpoint goes, how is that affecting their morality? How is that affecting their morale with the agency when the administration doesn't know who they are, you know, or at least gives the impression, and they may know who they are, but they give the impression they don't know who they are. I mean, when you've already dedicated, it's understandable first few months, you know, but when you've already got years under your belt, you know, it can be a little, you know, shot to the rib cage when things like that happen. And of course, my response to them, and I meant it, and I believe it's wholehearted. I said, well, that's because you guys aren't up here all the time. You know, you come here, you do your job, you're only in here for as long as you got to be, and then you bounce and you're out the door. You're not, you know, walking around shaking hands and being in the face.
Sometimes it may not be a bad thing that they don't know your name.
Yeah.
Or they don't recognize you. Yeah, it may not be. If you look,
that's a basic training thing there, sir.
I mean, exactly. Like sometimes it's good to fly under the radar, and that's another point. Like that guy's also got to step back and say, okay, well, what are these guys also dealing with?
Yeah.
Just because they don't know what are those guys dealing with? You know, the media, you know, all these other cases that they've got to check on and make sure that they're, you know, people are calling them, you know, with complaints and saying, hey, you know, what's going on with this case? You know, my family members, you know, worried about this and that. They've got a lot on their plate.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make excuses for them.
No, I'm not making excuses for anybody here.
But it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's part of that whole thing of what you were saying earlier about taking a step back and looking at the broader scope. How many times you tell me, or how many times have you heard me say, you can't see the forest for the trees right now?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the same thing. You can only see things from your perspective, and if you're not willing to take that step back and try to consider other aspects of it, that's just how it's going to stay. It's going to stay you not being able to see the forest for the trees. You're only going to see what's right in front of your face. And, you know, especially with our particular career fields, you know, when you're talking about the social aspect of it, the social unrest and the social aspect of it, like I said earlier, it hasn't affected our community as much as it has other places across the country. But it is still a thing. You know, our upper admin are still getting phone calls about and questions and comments and things that are being told to them. So they're having to deal with it from their standpoint, you know. So it's real easy when they've got everything they've got to, it's real easy for them not to, you know, take those little small efforts that people would think was nice. But at the same time, that's not an excuse not to, you know, right. When time has it, you know, walk over to the other side of the house, walk down to the assembly line and, you know, make your face sing. Yeah. You know, there I have found, and granted it's because of the time that I've been here, you know, I'm pretty comfortable with just about everybody we work with top to bottom. And it still kind of makes me smile and give me a little giggle when someone new gets on. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so was speaking to me today, or I got to meet so-and-so today. And I was like, okay. You know, I forget. It's too easy for me to forget to what it was like to be in that role.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody in upper management, you know, acknowledged them or, you know, shook their hand or whatever the case may have been. It's easy for me because I've been there for so long and I've gotten so comfortable with my relationship with all the individuals that I see them, you know, enamored with meeting this person. I was like, it's just a person. Like
well, that at the mid-level, you have to remember that too.
Yes.
Because if you downplay it,
yep,
then that person, you see what I'm saying? Like if you downplay it because you're so used to it, it's gonna affect that negatively. And
I've fallen into that trap too. You know, how do you not know that person? You know, especially if it's early in the morning and, you know, a cup of coffee hadn't kicked in yet. Okay.
You haven't had your breakfast.
Yeah. Okay. And like, go away. Go away.
Yeah. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Listening to classical music.
Yes. Oh Lord. But no, I the military isn't like you said before, that's a whole other beast. But you know, I can talk on it a little bit.
Thank you, DD214.
Yes, thank you, DD214. You run into some really, really bad leaders, but then you run into some really outstanding upper level leadership.
Yeah.
And it's but it's weird because the military has its own progression system,
Mm-hmm.
and you can be really like a really horrible leader and you can still reach that level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I think that it can be that way in any aspect. And you can be a bad leader and you can just keep promoting, and that's unfortunate, but it's going to happen.
Yep.
And the people like us, you have to understand that. You've got to get that, and you've just, you've got to deal with it. You got to deal with it because your job depends on it. You know what I mean?
It does.
I mean, it does. You don't want to ruffle too many feathers,
Mm-hmm.
and get fired. That wouldn't be good. But you just kind of have to take it for what it's worth. And this is one thing that will stick with me forever. I learned this as a brand new 18-year-old private. You're going to take the good and the bad from every leader that you have.
Yeah.
And then when you become a leader, you're gonna say, I didn't like how that person did it, but I liked how that person did, and it's gonna mold you into who you are.
Yeah.
So kind of use it as a learning experience. Like
that was
okay,
that
well,
was
he
that was the whole
sucks.
reason. That was the whole reason why I, wanted to go for the shift supervisor.
Yeah.
Not that I was under a bad supervisor, but I had my own ideas, and I saw what my supervisor or supervisors, because I had a couple different sergeants, but I saw how they did things, and there were good and bad aspects from both of them. And I wanted the opportunity to do the best I could for my people. And the statement I always told myself was, I wanted to be the sergeant I always wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the leader that I always wished I had. And that's not trying to speak negatively of any of the ones I've had before or any other, supervisor at the agency. It's not that. It's a me thing. That was me. I wanted to be the person I wanted to be led by. And I think if we think of it from an administrative standpoint, an upper level management standpoint, I think it can still apply there too. Go into that role wanting to be the admin or the upper management that you wish you had.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always extra stuff that's going to come in and take away from it. But that's where, when you're a leader, a real leader that, wants to have those qualities, goes, okay, you know what? I've been bogged down with budgets, and I've been bogged down with human resource issues, and I've been bogged down with equipment issues, and or advertisement or product placement or whatever the case is. I've been bogged down with that a lot. I need to take a couple of minutes to do X, Y, and Z just to nurture that relationship with those in the rank and file. And like I said, having not been in that position, aside from my ignorance and having my own business, it makes it tough to try to make sure you cover all of the aspects of it. But I think in general, if we can keep those things in mind, if we can just keep that, I guess the best way to say it is that humbleness. If we can keep that humbleness in mind and not buy into our own BS, and try to be that leader that we wanted to have led us, I don't see how that's going to be a failing combination. I don't see how you can be a bad leader that way from any level, especially from the upper management level.
Yeah, no. And this is like one other thing we can quickly touch on. And I think it's kind of really, not really important. Well, I think it is very important. Disseminating the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've got your job. Okay. Try to choose the best people for the next job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Try to be fair. I mean, fair is key. I mean, if there's sometimes you run into it where you owe people favors and you want them in one position because you owe them a favor. Well, that's good for you, but if they're not the best person for that job, don't be fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that goes a long way. But obviously, that's not always in your control. But trust the people that you put in that position to do the job.
Yeah.
Don't micromanage, because that's lose-lose. Because if you don't have the trust in the people that you promoted, how the heck do you expect the people that are underneath them to trust them?
Yeah.
It's terrible. So make sure you disseminate and you kind of back up, and you give them a task, just like what we talked about mid-level. Give them a task, let them figure it out.
Yeah.
I think you'll get more production, a better product, and a happier staff or organization if you do stuff that way.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But that's just my opinion on that. Like I said, we've never been in that position.
Well, I do know that another aspect that I've seen, obviously upper level management, they don't have to explain reasonings to anyone. If they decide they want something done, they can obviously just say, I want it done. But kind of going back to, I think, what we were talking in the last segment on, when you talk about personal ownership and validation and things like that, the newer generation, and I hate to make this analogy, but I think it's the best way I can do it at the moment. The newer, younger generations coming up is the quintessential why generation. Tell me to do something, and the response is why. I had a trainee at one point when I was the training officer for a new hire. I said, well, we're going to have to do it this way. I said, well, why? So, because this is what happened. If I'm not mistaken, it was somebody crashed a car into a telephone pole and tore off the bumper, and extensive damage to the car. And by extensive, I meant over $500 in damage. But which nowadays I guess could probably be a headlight. But the individual asked me, they were like, why are we doing that? Like, this person's car, they have the right to not fix their car or whatever they want. I'm like, yeah, you're 100% correct. But the telephone pole's damaged and the car is damaged. The damage to the car is going to be in excess of the allowable limit for the statute. Well, I still don't understand why. So I literally had to sit down with the code section and walk backwards from the crime that we were going to charge with. Had to walk backwards through the code section and show them each individual step that led from one to the end of the criminal charge. And I think that was probably what opened my eyes to it more than I'd ever seen it. Was we've got the why. I say generation. It's not a generational thing. It's a societal thing or a social thing. But people want to know a reason as to why they're being told or asked to do something. And obviously you don't, as an administrator, you don't have to go into great detail. But thinking back to, I can't even remember the analogy Mama used back then, but there was an analogy she used, something to the effect of, you get more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So understanding the employees that you've hired and knowing that they like to have this reason why they're being asked or told to do something. If you take the standpoint of, well, I don't have to explain it. Well, technically you're right. And nobody's going to fault you on the technicality of it. But on the effectiveness of it is where you're going to get judged. Because when you can give a simple explanation without all the fluff and details, well, we're doing this for this reason. Now they can make that association in their mind of, well, I'm being asked to do this one extra thing or this one more thing because of this reason. Not just because, well, the good idea fairy. They'll be able to make that connection, that association, and they're more apt to make that change willingly than they are if you don't. If you just say, this is what I want done, go out and do it. Well, why? Because I said so. Like, that's worked minimally as a parent for me and with my kids. Why do you want me to do this? Well, because I said so.
As a parent,
but,
you can do that though.
I do. It's the United States of me in my home.
That's acceptable.
Yes, I believe there are some psychologists and psychiatrists that probably disagree with that, but I'm not much of a fluff kind of guy.
Well, nobody asked them, so it's okay.
Exactly. Well, somebody may one day, but probably should. But no, that why aspect of it, that because I said so, that doesn't work, especially when you're dealing with adults. Oh, because you said so. Huh, well, you can go, yourself. That how many times has that phrase been said or heard said?
Yeah.
And just because of the adult mindset. Look, I'm an adult. You're not going to talk to me like a child, and that mindset is toxic, especially once it creeps in and it really sinks into somebody's head. Well, now as the upper level management or just leader in general, now you've got to work twice as hard to get past that one thing. It was like I was explaining to one of my kids. It doesn't matter how much good you do. You can do good for freaking ever. One bad thing is all it takes to take it down. Now that one.
Learned that.
Yeah.
I've learned. I have some firsthand experience in that, actually.
I might have been present for one or two of those.
Possibly.
But you, all it takes is that one thing. All it takes is that one thing, and now, it doesn't matter how many years of good it was. It seems almost as if all those years no longer mean anything. They're completely erased, and this is the only thing you've done, and it's bad. And you have to work twice as hard, if not more than that, to rebuild the foundation that you had already created. And in leadership, especially from an upper level management position, I would think that's one area you definitely want to try to not get into. You don't want to get into that area of where you've created a situation that you've lost the trust of those in the rank and file, and now you're trying to get cooperation and everything else from them. Because at the end of the day, especially in the economy we got now and everything we got going on, you're gonna do fire them. What happens when you fire everybody that doesn't agree with you or doesn't give you the cooperation you want? Especially our profession, you're gonna fire all of them.
You're SOL.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? You're gonna ask regular citizens to do our job? Technically, I guess you can in some aspects, but that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to keep your ego out of it. And not saying that they do, but you have to find a way to keep that ego out of it so that you're willing to do that compromising thing. And in my opinion, and it's just mine, and I will take ownership for my own, what is it hurting? What is it hurting to give some kind of an explanation? It's not hurting anything if they say, well, instead of this process on the assembly line, or instead of completing the reports for this way, we want you to do it this way now. Well, why? Well, because we've looked at it and done our research on it, and we feel like this is going to be a smoother, more easier transition, more productive, and we're going to be able to increase the output because we're lessening whatever the explanation is. Some piece of fruit, some little snippet that people can hold on to make this justification on why they have to make this change.
Yeah, and the fact that you gave them an answer, will go long enough. They may be like, well, that's stupid, but at least they got an answer.
Yeah,
at least they got an answer.
Yeah, they're going to remember the fact that you took the time to give them that. You respected them as an individual, as an employee, enough to give them that.
Correct.
And I think it's going to go a long way.
No, I agree. I do have a funny story when it comes to the whole why thing, and then I want to move on to one last thing, and I think we pretty much covered it. So you're talking about why. So right before we deployed, we got 4 new guys in the platoon to go ahead and deploy, and one of them was 40 years old.
How many people are in a platoon?
In my platoon, because we were a headquarters platoon, there was like maybe 20 of us.
Okay.
But I think in a like I said, I'm pretty dated. I'd have to go back and look in the manuals to give you an exact number of what specifies the platoon. But I want to say about 20 of us that were deploying in this said headquarters platoon. One of them was from a different country, a Eastern Bloc country, and he was like 40 years old, and he is just like fresh out of basic training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. I mean, great guy. But his favorite game, for whatever reason, we had these Connexes, those big metal shipping containers.
Yeah. And
this is what we were doing. We had to pack all of our stuff in them to send them overseas, right? We had to get our stuff over there. Well, he loved the game of take it out and put it back in. That's what we'd call it, right? Because we would have to unload these damn.
That seems so stupid.
30-foot long shipping containers that were filled from top to bottom, just full of stuff. We'd have to unload it, lay it out. Somebody would have to come at like the company commander would have to come and look at it all and say, we got this, check it off. Walking around with his hat off and his blouse off while the rest of us are sweating our balls off in that motor pool in Fort Stewart, Georgia. Dude, it was horrible. So we're cussing him. We're like, look at this guy walking around with no top on. Anyways, it's another story. But he, Barna, I use his name, but whatever. Barna, he loved that game. And he'd say, oh, Chris, we're going to go play the take it in and put it back game. Take it in, put it back game. I'm like, yeah, we are, Matty. We got to do it. Well, he asked why one time. And I'll never forget, we had a squad leader. And he asked why, and our squad leader lost his shit. I mean, just lost it. Could not believe that this, he was basically a private, but he wore the rank of specialist. Could not believe he asked why, and just lost his shit on him. And tensions were high. We were getting ready to deploy. There's a lot going on. I get it. But there was no reason for him to lose his shit. Yeah. He just wanted to know why we have to do this for the 20th time.
Yeah, I would too. I was literally sitting here thinking that the whole time, like, why? Why are you doing this?
Everybody was wondering
why
the
not
same
inventory
thing.
It before you put it in? That's what the deal is.
He was the only one that just actually had the balls to ask, and that was because he was 40 years old and didn't care, But but we're to go back to that is just give him a reason. I mean, he would have been perfectly fine with, well, this is why we got to. There's a new layout format that we have to do. That's what it was, because the Coast Guard has to go and inspect all of them, because they've got to go on the ships or the planes to go, and if it's not laid out right and the weight's off, it's going to screw shit up.
Right.
There was an actual reason for it, but nobody was willing to explain it to him, and I didn't know.
Do you think that the reason he went off was because he didn't know?
Yeah, he was incompetent. So
That's
yes.
a nice way of putting it.
Yes, to put it mildly, he was incompetent, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But it was a task that he was given, and we were asked to go help him with it, and we were all fussing and complaining because it was 100 degrees, and we were in an open cement, parking lot where there's no shade, and we've already done it 15 other times.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it. But anyways, I had to share that story. It was a good one. I always laugh about it. But the last thing I want to kind of touch on real quick, and I think that companies, agencies throughout the country, I think they have a problem with this. And it's really key in our profession, especially in 2021. And that is the failure to evolve. The willingness to evolve.
Okay.
And we see it, right? We see what's happening every single day, right? We deal with it every single day. There's new laws that we have to, there's new procedures and new case law and stuff that comes out that, hey, 15 years ago, that didn't apply.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times when you get into the upper management, you kind of lose sight of that because you're not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So if somebody, like if a sergeant comes to you and says, hey, this just came out, just read it, one of our policies doesn't align with this, we need to get it fixed. It would behoove you to get it fixed.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people, especially nowadays, they're starting to open up to that. But I think, you know, prior to what we're going through right now, especially in law enforcement, I don't think they were willing to open their eyes to it. And I think there's still some people in management that are like, well, we've always done it that way, so we're going to keep doing. No.
Yeah.
You got to evolve with the times. You've got to, and it's.
And in saying that, you know, as far as trying to still be objective about everything, I think it's also worth mentioning that we also, as we're making these suggestions, because I mean we're talking about stuff that's other than just policy, but the flip side of that coin is, unless the reason is well, this is why we've always done it, there ain't no sense in doing it differently. You know, I've never operated that way, but we also have to keep in mind that there may be reasons as to why we haven't done it. That those of us that are in the rank and file, we just may not be privy to the reason as to why certain changes haven't been made or certain evolving has not occurred.
Right.
You know, it could be a finance thing, it could be a staffing thing, it could be an equipment thing.
Oh no, absolutely.
But if the reason is, well, this is the way we've always done it, then yeah, that's most definitely an issue, because times have changed. You know, social, the society has changed, mentality have changed, people have changed.
Well, on the business side, there could be new technology that comes out.
Yep.
There could be new technology that comes out, and somebody, you know, at mid-level says, "Hey, boss, you guys are on a Monday morning meeting. Hey, boss, this new technology just came out. You know, well, it's been out for 5 years or so. It's finally got down to where we can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
We should try to implement this new technology. It's going to help, our production line, tenfold."
Yeah.
Don't be afraid at the upper level management to take that idea and say, you know what, let's look into it.
Yeah.
Don't just shoot it down because it's something new and you're afraid to go to it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I'm kind of getting at is,
yeah.
And obviously we can only talk on the law enforcement side of the house, but it still applies to the other side, to the private sector. It's don't be afraid to evolve with the times. Don't be stuck in your own ways, because
at bare minimum, at least
that's not good.
At bare minimum, at least try. At least try.
At least,
that was one of the things that we did with, and we still do now. I think it happens a lot less than what it used to. But that was one of the things that I've always been real big on is, when we did have our shift meetings, I would wind up asking you guys, is there anything that y'all see we can do different? Is there any new ideas you want to try? Is there anything y'all want to do? Now, I did, get to where it was something that we voted on as a group because it affected everybody. But it was always one of those things of, if we could get agreements on it, then let's try it. If it doesn't work, we go back to the way we were doing. We go back to the drawing board and we figure something else out. We at least gave it the attempt to see if it was going to be better. And I think that's something that's really important, because one, you're giving your rank and file that empowerment. You're giving them that sense of ownership and contributing and so on. And at the same time, you're allowing these new ideas to come in. And who knows that one of those ideas may be the thing that, sets you apart from everyone else.
Yeah. Take advantage of the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that, hey, this is going to make our, the organization happy. It's an easy catch. It's an easy grab. We can pull it right off the tree and instantly you can get some gratification out of it.
Yeah.
Just, don't be afraid to change it up a little bit, because I think it can go a long way for morale, for, productivity, and that's pretty much on that note, that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
I hear you, Forrest. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
No,
So-
and I agree with you. I think the big takeaways from this one is, from an admin standpoint, recognize there's a natural disconnect between you and the rank and file. Recognize that, and it's not a bad thing. It's a natural thing. You can't stop it from happening because you no longer, on a day-to-day basis, focus in that area. So recognize that there's a natural disconnect, but at the same time, try your best to bridge that gap. Keep in touch. You've heard me say it before. Keep your finger on the pulse of the people. Keep in touch with the people in the rank and file. Make that effort, and when you make that effort, they're going to make the effort. Hopefully, if they're a good person, good employee, and then continue to apply those leadership skills that were successful for you coming up to the point where you are now. Now obviously that doesn't really work if the person thought they had a good leadership skill and it was actually crap. But you rely on feedback for that. I always relied on you guys, and still do, rely on you guys to give me feedback on how I'm doing things. Because how else am I going to know how else am I going to get a report card on this? I can't just constantly see everything. So I've got to have that feedback. And I think those are the two biggest things: is recognize that there's a natural disconnect, try to bridge it, and then also keep focusing on those same leadership skills. Don't get so wrapped up in your new position or your position in general that you lose focus on those good leadership qualities that have helped make you or the company or organization or whatever successful to that point. Because it's once you abandon those things, once things start to go off track, when those employees or rank and file start to feel less valued, or that they are just another cog in the wheel. I saw something, I was flipping through TikTok the other day, and there was I think I told you last night, there was a Sergeant First class on there that was talking about the attitude of the leader can dictate the attitude of the rank and file. And obviously I'm taking some license on that, but that was essentially what it was saying. Basically, the leader's attitude is going to be reflected in those that they manage or supervise. And I agree with that. I really do, because if you've got a group of people that work well together, that's what winds up happening. They wind up seeing you're upset about something, or you got a negative attitude about something, and then it just kind of bleeds over into them and puts them in a bad mood, or whatever the case is. So focus on those things. But then on the flip side of it, those of us that are not in that upper management position, we've got to take that step back and be willing to be more objective, be willing to know and understand that there are aspects of that administrative role or that upper management role that we can't even begin to conceptualize. We have no understanding of what it's like to be in their shoes, to fill their role and have to accomplish the task they have to accomplish. And the only example I've got of that is, when I first got promoted to corporal and then to sergeant, I thought I knew. When I moved into those roles, I thought I had it all figured out. But it wasn't until I was in those shoes when I'm having especially when I was sergeant, I made a big deal, because now the buck stopped with me. Good or bad, the buck stopped with me. And I would always accept that role. But, there were nights or mornings that I'm on the way to the house going, holy crap, dude. I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know how I handled that. I don't know this, that, and the other, but I did the best I could. And we, as individuals that are not in those upper management positions, have to recognize that we don't know everything, that we don't know what those other individuals are going through and what their job requires them to do. And that there may be aspects of their position or aspects of that level of management that prevent them from doing things that to us are so simple. Well, why can't we get the newest this, that, and the other? Well, the daggone budget doesn't cover it. Well, why? Well, because you got to have money to buy things. I mean, it's the way it kind of works. We it's like you said earlier. It takes two people to dance, and that we have to be willing to both work at it. And it's once we decide to stop that is when the train goes off the tracks and we stop making progress. Just my 2 cents.
100%. And I'm just going to reiterate one more time on that. For the guys that, like me, are the lower level guys, just take a deep breath, step back, quit wasting energy on, getting all upset that the upper levels are, you guys don't understand what they got going on. You can vent to your friends and vent to your buddies. That's fine. Okay. But until you really take a step back and look and say, you know what? They probably have some other stuff going on. They may not be able to get to my problem today. Maybe they'll just quit wasting energy.
Yeah.
Because I think that's because when you start talking, especially when you have a big company or you're in an agency, when somebody starts going off negatively, then people feed off each other.
Yep.
And that doesn't do any good for the company or the agency either.
No.
Just, you can vent a little bit, but then, take a step back, take a deep breath, think, hey, there's something else going on. Maybe they'll get to this at another point in time.
Yeah.
Or there's a legitimate reason why they need us to do it this way. And have an open mind and say, you know what? I see where they're coming from. And just do it. Just get it done. Make it happen, and everything will be all right. And then when you get to that upper level, you can do it how you want to do it. And then you'll come to find out, oh wait, I can't do it the way I want to do it because there's some other stuff I got to get done. It's it's a never-ending problem, but it's okay. It'll be all right. It'll be. I think we've pretty much touched on it all, and I believe, sir, if I remember from our conversation last night, that you have a cookout to get to.
Yes.
That I was not invited to, by the way. I want everybody to be aware that I was not invited to this cookout. I'm actually really upset about it, and I'm gonna be texting the host of the cookout later on today to let him or her know that I'm displeased that I was not at least invited. I wouldn't have been able to make it, but
you know who did get an invite?
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. So anyways, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking on leadership. I don't know all be all to leadership. I haven't, been in those positions, but I feel like I have a good, point of view from where I stand.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, talking to you, who's been a leader for quite some time now, and obviously you're looking to progress up the ladder. I think you've made some good points too. So
yeah, I would agree. All right. Well, I don't have anything to add either. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Guys, like always, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the compliments and the comments, whether they're good or bad. The negative ones help just as much as the positive ones. Don't forget, we are on several platforms. We've got several social medias out there. So reach out to us. This is a thing that's dedicated to be focused around you and help you get through some things in life, or help you navigate.
Whoa.
Yeah, that happened. Help you navigate.
English much?
Yeah. Do you even? But help you navigate some of these things that can seem to get you bogged down a little bit at times. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're here for, and we want you to reach out to us and help us get along with that. So hit us up on any of the social media platforms, and some of the podcast platforms also have some messaging apparatuses that you can leave us things on. So don't be afraid to use that.
You can just search Breach Your Mind, right, Brian?
Yes, you can search it. Just as a little, I guess, ego-driven thing, I went into Google just the other day, and Breach Your Mind was second in the list. When you type in Breach Your Mind, it actually shows up as second. I think somebody's book shows up first. We're going to have to work on the SEO for that. But yeah, just search Breacher Mind and it shows a lot of the platforms. And then on a lot of the other platforms, especially on Buzzsprout where we produce this, it actually has links to the other platforms and things like that. It's also got the social media. So reach out to us and let us know whether you're leaving a compliment, comment, negativity, or you just have a certain situation. Obviously, we will be as discreet as we possibly can. And we have no intentions of calling out anyone's names, agencies, companies, nothing like that. So if you're concerned with someone saying something or leaving a comment or anything like that, if we're afraid that we're going to out you on it, trust me, we're not going to do that because we have jobs we have to keep as well. So we're doing our best to keep ours out of it. So reach out to us. You know, that's what we're here for. So until next time, hope everything goes good, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.